Good evening, friends, subscribers and channel members. So tonight we're doing another one of our Airbus A320 tutorial flights, and the idea is, of course, if you can, get yourself in the simulator and we're going to do a flight together, you and me. Hopefully we'll have some learning along the way, and we'll have a nice short flight hopping across the Irish Sea between Belfast and Manchester. So it is only a short hop, but we're going to spend a bit of time on the ground getting everything ready, and of course make sure that we do everything that we need to do to get you guys familiar with any procedures and ask any questions that you've got. So that's the idea behind this flight. As you can see, I've not even set up yet because I'm going to go through absolutely everything with you tonight in the stream. So let me just get rid of the little timer there. Now that's done and I'm all set up. So if you've not yet launched the simulator, get the simulator launched. You're certainly not too late. And what we're going to do is we're going to get set up on the ground at Belfast Airport. You don't need to create a flight plan or anything like that. I've gone ahead, done everything like that for you. The only thing you will need is the Airbus A320 mod. It doesn't matter which version it is as long as it has SimBrief integration. The reason for that is because I'm going to allow you to obviously come in and use my username so that we're all flying the same flight plan together, and it'll all work hopefully seamlessly. So go and get your simulator fired up, and then we're going to get on the ground at as I say, at Belfast. Christian, good evening. Give you an hour to start the sim. In that case, my friend, you've got far too much junk in that community folder of yours. So I'm going to go to the world map. We're also we'll fly in real live weather, but we'll change the time so we can fly during our daylight hours. So here it is, Belfast Aldergrove that we're after. So pick yourself a parking stand. We're going to be taking off from runway 07. What I'm going to do now is also just show you that we've also got the Navigraph charts to have a look at as well. If you don't have Navigraph charts, that doesn't matter, but what you will see is the benefit of having them, and it'll also show you where it is I'm getting my information from, and it may hopefully help to understand how the charts are used as well. So if you do have those charts available to hand, then you can bring those up, and hopefully this will help you guys as well. So here's the parking stands, as you can see, in accordance with the Navigraph charts. So which one should I pick? Let's pick number 29 or 29A, which is in the corner. 29 appears to be missing. I'll tell you what, let's go with 28 then. So we'll set that as our departure. Set that going up. Emil69, can I show you how to program a holding pattern into the computer? Sadly, it's not yet available. As soon as it is, I promise I'll do a little tutorial on that. It's actually quite straightforward once it is working, but alas, sadly not yet. So all I want you guys to do is get yourself sat on the ground, pick a parking stand. I've just picked parking stand 28. Oh, no I haven't, I've just deleted it again. There we go. Parking stand 28. I'm on live weather. I'll jump into the sim and adjust the time once we're in there. I'm not flying on VATSIM. We've got no air traffic control, no other aircraft to worry about, so I suggest you guys do the same. Turn off all AI aircraft so you can just concentrate on the stream and yourself in flying the aircraft. So let me click fly, and now we just have to look at this splash screen for 2 or 3 minutes while that loads up. But if you do have any questions, then I don't want to rush tonight. I want to be able to take as much time as we need, and you guys can obviously ask questions as we go along. What I'm also going to do, just whilst that loads up, is I'm going to give you a PDF copy of the flight plan. So that is now available in the chat. If you click on that link, that will take you to there. So there's the flight plan, which I'll show you in a minute. If you link my SimBrief username into the aircraft, you'll be able to use that and also have it on the flypad, which is really nice new feature that FlyByWire have recently introduced. John, your sound pack is not working in self-loading cargo. Can I make a video for it? Do you know, a lot of people have asked me about this. I may do. But self-loading cargo is quite nice and straightforward. That's one of the reasons I like it. We're going to use it tonight, actually. We'll have some virtual passengers on online. So here we go. Here's Belfast, just loading in. And there we are. Nice easyjet, the custom livery for the channel, the easyjet SimPilot livery. Looking very nice this evening. Christo, I'm now going to try out the CRJ 700. Well, I don't know if you were in the stream earlier today. I am going to be giving a free copy of that away in a stream later on this week. As for actually flying it myself, I'm not. The only reason I'm not flying it myself is because you know that this channel is dedicated to doing everything as close to reality and as possible, and I just don't have the time to learn all the new features, and I don't want to do Aerosoft a disservice by just jumping in and flying it any old way. If I was going to do it, I would do it 100% by the book, and I just haven't got the time at the moment, sadly, to be able to do that. But I will be giving a free copy away. Aerosoft have donated a copy to the channel, which we will be giving away. So if this is your first time on the channel, then make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you know when that's happening. Christian, no multiplayer on. As I say, just going to concentrate on ourselves this evening. So as I say, I'm not rushing this through. Just for anyone that does want to fly along with me, I'm just going to let you guys get the simulator all set up. And then what I will do now is I'll head into the flight deck, and I'm just going to adjust the time because I don't like flying at night. That's not true. I actually really quite like flying at night in this simulator, but on a tutorial, let's pop some daylight in. So I'll just roll the clock back 12 hours. So what time is it? 8:42. If we go back exactly 12 hours, it just makes the time a little easier to comprehend. So that looks interesting. Is part of that building missing, or is that how it's meant to be? How strange. Is that what Belfast Aldergrove really looks like? Half the building missing. Right. So I want to have a look outside now and see. That's interesting. This is a modded airport as well. This is a free mod from flightsim.to. So go and grab yourselves that. That is the runway we shall be departing from, runway 07. So let's now slowly start getting on board and setting up. So first thing I want you to do is get the fly pad turned on. Whilst that's turning on, we're going to turn on those batteries 1 and 2. There we go. Once that fly pad is on, then we can go to our ground services page and we can call our external power. Mersey Blues, good evening. You had a walk around Manchester Airport today. Oh, you mean in real life? Fair enough. I forgot what real life was there for a moment. Yeah, there's some great spotting areas. There's loads of mud. But very, very worth it, particularly when, of course, we've got more aircraft that are actually coming into land. Right, so our ground power unit is now there, as you can see, with the amber lights flashing through the flight deck. I wish Azobo would fix that, but never mind. So now the ground power unit is hooked up. We can actually connect that and start drawing the external power into the aircraft. So let's go ahead and turn on external power. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start our flows for the overhead panel. So the first thing we're going to do is turn on the crew oxygen supply, come all the way up, and then turn on the ADIRs. Number 1 first, number 2, followed by the backup, which is number 3. Number 1 for the pilot, number 2 for the first officer side, and number 3 as a backup. So next thing we can do, we can turn on the navigation and logo lights, let the people on the ground know that there are people here. And we can turn on our seatbelt signs, we can turn on the no smoking signs, and we can arm the emergency lights as well. Once we've done that, we're going to work our way up and turn on the fuel pumps. Now, I do this quite a little bit differently in the real ops streams, just because at the moment we've not technically got the fuel loaded on, which we're going to do in a moment through the McDo and SimBrief integration. You would not turn the fuel pumps on until your fuel had been loaded, and you would not turn the seatbelt signs on either until all your fuel had been loaded. The last thing you want is a fire starting as they're refueling and all your passengers strapped in. So we wait until refueling is done before turning the fuel pumps on and the seatbelt signs. Okay, so all of those are done. One last thing then before starting the APU is you can do an engine fire test. So engine test 1, engine 2, and of course the APU. And I'm not sure if I've shown you this before actually, but you do actually get, if I just bring that out so you can see, there's the upper ECAM. If we do have an engine fire and we test it, you'll see the alert coming as well on the ECAM. There we go. So they do work on there as well. Let me just close that down then. So now we can start to get the APU running as well. Again, something else I wouldn't normally do until we've done refueling. But for this tutorial tonight, we'll turn on the APU, wait 3 seconds before hitting the start button, so that's enough time. And the APU is now starting. So the APU is a little jet engine in the back of the aircraft, which, if we sat here for long enough, you would be able to hear it, because the fly-by-wire guys have done a fantastic job at adding all these sounds in. You can hear that just starting now, and of course the warning lights are on as well. Lewis, how do I pull out the display? Great question. Okay, well the next thing I'm going to do, actually, you can do that with any of the displays, and quite importantly you can do it with your flypad. So if you press on your keyboard the right Alt key, you'll see it turns into a little magnifying glass with a plus icon in there. So if you press that, and then you can see we've got, that's just opened on my second monitor, so I've just dragged that across for you, but there it is. And this is really useful actually when typing away on the flypad, because if I now go to the company page, I can type in, and I want you guys to do the same as well. You can use my username, easyjet sim pilot, if I spell correctly. Try again, sim pilot. There we go. And you're not then actually sending any commands to the aircraft through the simulator. So it's better to be typing stuff in on the flypad when it's in a window rather than in the simulator itself. That is one of the causes that some people have got sending their aircraft doing daft things, banking hard left, hard right, because you're actually sending controls as they're key binded in the simulator to some of the control surfaces, which means you start to steer the aircraft unknowingly while typing away. So now we've got easyjet sim pilot in there, I can just close that down. I can go back to the dashboard and we can press from SimBrief, and that should load in. Oh, actually no, it won't load in because I've not loaded it in on the McDo yet, but we're going to do that in a moment. So gosh, why can't we hear the engines barking in the A320NX? We can in the vanilla version. In the A320 you can't actually hear it in the flight deck that well. You can in the A321, but not in the A320. If you want to bring that back, you can actually hear it if you start, we can do it actually, but if you can hear it when you're in the cabin. So if we've got a wing view like this and we're sat in the cabin, you will hear that. But one of the things you can do in this version is if you go to the settings, you can actually turn it on. PTU audible in the cockpit, and then in brackets unrealistic. So you can turn that on or off. If you want to hear that, there you are. So just go back to the dashboard. Alright, I'm going to come down here and start pulling information in from SimBrief. Now this is where, as I said, you guys don't need a flight plan all set up for this, because I'm going to let you use mine. Good evening, HD. Go easy on us tonight. We're low-level tutorialing. So, if you want to use mine, no problem using that. Go to the McDo menu, then go to the options page. Go to AOC, then to SimBrief, and just type in this username here, easyjet simpilot. So if you guys want to go ahead and do that, I'll just give you 30 seconds or so. John, I'm actually using the custom build, just because I find it a lot nicer to fly. I've recently done a video on that, actually, explaining the difference between the custom, the developer, and the stable build. So go and check that out on the channel if you want any of those questions answered regarding the difference. But the custom build is much nicer to fly and much easier. Umarf, why do I call it the McDo? Because it's easier than saying the multifunctional computer display unit, control display unit. That's a mouthful. That, and I like McDonald's. HD, you can answer low level. Fair point. Justin, autopilot help would be good. What are the different settings we use? No problem. Stick with us, Justin. We're going to go through all of those. Okay, so if you've got easyjet simpilot now, typed into that, let's come out of there. Just press the McDo menu and go back to the A2, and we're going to pull information in from SimBrief now. So AOC menu and init press. So this way we download the information from SimBrief's server into the simulator, not into the aircraft. So init data request, let's pull that in. There we go. 38-minute flight, Belfast to Manchester. Fuel on board at the moment is 9.5 tons. Well, that's crazy. We don't need that much, especially this aircraft, as it doesn't burn fuel correctly at the moment. So that is the actual fuel on board the aircraft at the moment. That is not how much we will be taking. Christian, yeah, there's now a McDo at the McDonald's in Hanover. That was great spotting that, wasn't it? Okay, so now the information's been downloaded from the SimBrief server. What we need to put in is our passenger weights and the fuel that is required. So AOC menu. We're going to go to our performance, weights and balance page. So this is the fuel that our operational flight plan is telling us that it thinks we need to be able to complete this flight. As you can see, those figures match up. 3112, and down here 3112. It is not the fuel up here. Okay, you need the plan block fuel. That's just the fuel for the trip and taxi, things like that. It hasn't got your final reserves in, fuel for your contingency. So this is the plan block fuel that we need to have a look at. 3112, make sure that matches up. It does. If we're happy with that, we then press the refuel and the load button. So we press that, and we can confirm that the fuel is actually entering the aircraft by watching the gross weight just here. So the gross weight at the moment is 59600. I expect that to go down in a minute because we're technically going to take fuel off. So let's pop that in. There we go. It's now 53,200, 53.2 tons. We're now going to check out the weights of our passengers. So let's scroll over to page 2 of 2 using the arrow keys. Here we go. So the payload for the passengers, SimBrief tells us it's 151 passengers. And a payload of 15.7 tons, 15704, and again you can match that up just there, 15704. That all looks good. We can also check out the zero fuel weight. So that's the weight of the aircraft with all the passengers on board, all the luggage, but no fuel. And that's 56.7. Zero fuel weight, 56.7. That matches up nicely as well. So we can go ahead and press the payload load button, select that, and again just watch the gross weight of the aircraft change when we load that in. That's now done, and now the gross weight is 59.7 tons. Let's have a look at our estimated takeoff weight. So 59.6. So it's estimating that we're going to use about 100 tons. Sorry, about 100 kilograms of fuel in the taxi, which is probably a little on the optimistic side, but for the simulator that's absolutely fine. Okay, one of the other things we need to do then is just check this out. We've got the zero fuel weight center of gravity. Well, since the last sim update, we now need to pop that in this bar here. So this is the empty center of gravity position. So let's set that to 30, so that matches up. There we go. And we can also take note of the center of gravity just here. So the actual center of gravity now, with the fuel, passengers, everything on board, will be 32.5 rounded up, and that's important for our trim setting in a little bit. So Christian, am I on the custom build? Yes, yes I am. Christian, we did the fire test warning, and the master warning button didn't work. It depends. My custom build is from yesterday, so they may have added something that has broken it. That's why I always like to be a day behind. Do I round up the zero fuel weight, etc., when going to the decimal? Yeah, always round up. So let's close that down. Now then, that's all done. I'm going to let our self-loading cargo passengers start boarding, just to add a little bit of realism to this. Sorry, my self-loading cargo is just dinging away at me. There we go. So let's get that started. They're all going to be angry because they're quite late, but we're ready for boarding. Agent Smith, when you installed custom build, many buttons were in op. Oh, that's interesting.
Cabin crew, we can open the doors now and start letting them on board. Thanks very much.
Okay, no problem.
Alright, so everything now in terms of the fuel and the passenger weights are all entered down here. Let's come and just check, have we got any stairs to play with? I think we have. Excellent. Let's now press the information from SimBrief here on the flypad. Now we've actually linked it into the McDo, and that should now populate. There we go. Okay, back to the ground page, and we should be able to call our passenger services. If that works, try that again. Oh, there we go. And the doors opened. Lovely. So the passengers are going to start boarding. Whilst we let them on board, we're going to do a couple more things then. So the weather here in Belfast, we are on live weather, just not on live time. We can get the weather using the dashboard as well, which is really nice now. So the current QNH here in Belfast is 1037. So we can come along here, set up the center instrument panel. So let's turn up the standby instrument 1037. I think load sheet functions HD come with really advanced aircraft, which, like you say, would be nice to see at some point. 1037, was that right? Let me double check that. That's high. That's very high. 1037. Okay. Check the clock. Yep, it's about an hour, 12 hours behind normal time, as we wanted to fly in daylight. Agent Smith, I'm using self-loading cargo. We also want to check that the anti-skid is turned on. Come down to the pedestal now, check that none of the flap levers are in the wrong place, all the spoilers, the thrust levers are also at idle. Happy with that. We also need to turn on the transponder. Soon, this should never actually be touched. This should always be turned on, this bottom one. And Fly-by-Wire are actually looking at that at the moment. They've got a little update which is always going to leave this turned on. So that'll be quite nice to see when that happens. So just turn that on for now. There we go. So up to the glare shield then, or the flight control unit, FCU, also known as the autopilot unit. We're going to set the standard pressure up here, 1037. It really is high, that. 1037 millibars. Okay, 1037. We're going to turn flight directors on, 1 and 2. Turn the constraints on as well. And I've just extended the range rings on there just so we can have a look out the window in a little further on the plan once I import the flight plan in. So now that's done. IRS is already aligned. That's all done. Let's turn up the brightness of these displays now. And the ECAM displays. I'm going to turn off the first officer's displays to save frame rates. APU is now available, so we can start pumping in some bleed air. Keep the cabin nice and fresh. So now we're going to come and set up the actual flight computer for the flight, and this is where the FlyPlad comes into its own now that we've actually got the dispatch operational flight plan here on the FlyPad, and we can move it up and down freely with the latest update, and of course zoom in. So that's good. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is come now to our init page, and it's the init A page. GPS primary showing there in the scratch pad. That's just let us know the IDs are aligned, so we can press clear to clear that. What we want to do now is press init request, and this uplinks everything from the simulator now into the aircraft's actual navigation computer. So select that, uplink, insert in progress. So there we are. There's the alternate, Birmingham, flight number, easyjet 101, cost index of 8, and a cruise flight level 250, and a temperature of -34. Now we can obviously check all this, so let's just check. The cost index is 8 and 250 -34. Cost index there as 8, flight level 250, and the cruise temperature here is actually showing -41, so we can go ahead and change that. To do that, we just pop a slash as it comes after that, and pop in, not 41, -41. There we go. We can also have a look at the tropopause height. The simulator is showing 34950. If we come back over here, tropopause 34969. So realistically, there's not much difference. I'm happy to leave that. Sometimes they are well out, so go with the operational flight plan and change that. So there we go. I thought MDA or DH is for autopilot. Right, okay, so we can talk about this a little bit in the cruise if you wish, but the minimum descent altitude is not for auto lands. Minimum descent altitude is what you'd normally do. Decision height is only when you're doing an auto land. Okay, so that's our init A page all sorted. We're now going to come and have a look at our flight plan. So our flight plan today, as you can see from Belfast, the first waypoint is Lisbon. Now, again, if we double check that, there's the first waypoint at Lisbon. Strangely enough, Belfast doesn't have any standard instrument departures, and we can check that on our charts. If we these are the charts for Belfast, Aldergrove, standard instrument departures. It just has a departure routing, which is here, and all it tells us is that by the time we get to Lisbon, we need to be above 4,000 feet, which should be very doable, particularly as, if we also have a look at one of the departure briefings, noise abatement, if we're going to be specific with those, climb on runway track to 2,000 feet before commencing any turns. So essentially what we will do is we will take off runway 7, and then we'll get to 2,000 feet before turning direct towards Lisbon. We could in fact just come direct to Ringa at that point if we so wished. So let me just clear that for you. Alright, we do need to tell the aircraft, however, which runway we're departing from. So departing from runway 07, to do that we just select Belfast at the top, departure runway 07, and there we go, we're going via Lisbon. Do we have a transition on our flight route? Pebot, Gigto, Mersey. This is sometimes where the charts are important. It will be Pepard. I don't think actually we're flying past any of those. I've got none of those, strangely enough. We're certainly not going via Nimat, and we're not going via the Isle of Man, as we're taking the Lima 603. So unless the Lima 603 actually goes via the Isle of Man, which it doesn't, so we're going to have to just leave that because we can't delete that. We'll leave the Isle of Man in. Insert that. Okay, now let's have a look at our arrival. So our arrival in Manchester is runway 23 right, just by the airport pub, and it's the Mersey 2 Delta arrival. So click on Manchester, arrival, ILS 23 right, the Mersey 2 Alpha. Was it the Mersey 2 Alpha? Oh, sorry, Mersey 2 Delta. Mersey 2 Delta. One more. Mersey 2 Delta. I'll go back and have a look at that HD. I don't think it was going to let me do it, but so Mersey 2 Delta. Let's just get the arrival in. And for some reason, Manchester is a bit of a bugged airport here in the simulator. It will always want us to go via the Mike Charlie Tango VOR, which is basically a VOR at the airport itself. I don't want to do that because if we have a look at what the chart shows us for this arrival, basically it should take us in to Wallasey and then stops at Mersey. After Mersey we would get vectors from air traffic control. What the simulator wants us to do is to come from Mersey and then just go straight towards the Manchester VOR. Instead, what we will do, because we can't get rid of it, is we will vector ourselves in. So we're going to show you how to vector ourselves in on this approach when we get to it. There should be an option, or rather there is an option. It says no veers. If I select that, however, so we've got no veers in there, no transitions, and insert that, we'll see that it actually will still. Let me just scroll down. It's still got the Mike Charlie Tango in there, which is a pain. Also, scrolling through this, I see that we've got Lisbon now in there twice due to that Isle of Man waypoint being popped in. So let me try and do that again. So runway 07 via Lisbon. In fact, you know what? Standard instrument departure. Maybe this is where it's confusing it. Let me pop in none. There's no standard instrument departure. Insert. Ah, there we go. That's better. So I think the confusion was the simulator was asking for a standard instrument departure. There isn't one. Just say no standard instrument departure. It's not in the flight routing, and we've got now our waypoints that we needed: Lisbon, Pepod, Vacpo. Lisbon, Pepod, Vacpo is on the Q38 airway. And there we are. Much better. So a distance of 197 miles, and a distance of 208. That is probably because of the messing about with our arrival into Manchester, but that's okay. Buster, no, you're not the only one having issues with Manchester, so this will be a great little tutorial on how to actually land in at Manchester and ignore what the simulator wants you to do. Alright, so that's all programmed in, happy with our flight plan. Now the other thing that we can do is, if we just have a look at our departure, we can pop in the Belfast VOR in there into our RadNav page. And the only reason I do this is because if something went wrong and I needed raw data, you know, I had to go back into Cessna mode, I like to have a VOR there. I like to be able to flick that button, know how I can get back to that airport in the event of an emergency. So Belfast VOR BEL, we can go to the RadNav page, pop that in, Bravo Echo Lima, and there we go, 0 nautical miles, so it's obviously the top one. There we are, so that's the RadNav page all populated. So the init B page then, we're going to have a look at now. So init page and then the arrow. This is our fuel planning page. I'm going to stop in a little bit just to let anyone catch up or ask questions, but HD is there in the chat as well, so very grateful to him. Any questions you've got, if I've missed them, I'm sure HD is picking those up for me. So the 0 fuel weight, again, we can get off the operational flight plan. So our 0 fuel weight is 56.7. Let's pop that in, 56.7. And we had a standard center of gravity, 0 fuel weight is 30.0. So the last thing we need to enter then is our trip wind. The trip wind can be found just here. We've got a tailwind of 36, so that's going to help on our short trip to Manchester. It's a tailwind of 36. If it was a headwind, it would be a H, so H36 or T36. So tailwind of 36, and we literally just type in T36 or H36 if it was a headwind, and pop that in just there. We're now going to press the fuel planning button, and what this will do is the aircraft will tell us how much fuel it thinks it needs to make that journey with the alternate as well. So we have loaded in already 3 tons, which seems rather low actually, but it'll be fine for this aircraft. So let's type in, let's hit the fuel planning button and see what this suggests. So it's saying 2.4. We've got 3 tons, 3,000 kilograms on board. That's fine. What we're going to do now is we're going to change that block fuel figure. We're not going to confirm it because we're actually taking a little bit more. So let me pop 3.0 in, 3 tons, and pop that in there. And in a second, all these weights will populate. There we are. Look. So what things I check now is the alternate. It's telling me I needed 300 kilograms, 0.3 tons to get to our alternate. If we come over here, it tells me actually the alternate we're going to need closer to 800 kilograms, so 0.8. So I can now go in, type in 0.8, and that will also increase the time to 90 minutes as well. Our takeoff weight is 59.6. Let's have a look. 59.6, spot on. And our landing weight, now this is where the sim will differ from the flight plan because the sim doesn't burn fuel correctly. So the landing weight it's suggesting is 58.5, 58.5 tons. Landing weight 58.3, so slightly heavier. It is a short route, so that's probably why that's actually quite close. Okay, so I can also now just press the fuel prediction page. It tells me I should land at Manchester with 1.8 tons of fuel remaining. So that's good. Alright, just before we go and do our takeoff performance page and calculations, I'm just going to wait a second for anyone that is flying along with me tonight just to catch up or pop any questions into the chat. Buster, the only question you have is that Simreef doesn't give you an approach or runway in the flight plan. Don't know if you're doing it wrong or you need the latest AIRAC cycle for it to work. Okay, so it could be the AIRAC cycle, but even then, the AIRAC cycle, without the most up-to-date AIRAC cycle, it should still give you a runway. Now, if I just bring in my operational flight plan here, then I have got this set up to use the easyjet operational flight plan layout. The reason I use that is obviously I'm more familiar with the easyjet way of working, and I also just like the format in general. So for instance, the arrival runway is shown here, Manchester, and it's runway 23 right, and the preceding waypoint, if you like, instruction is the actual arrival. It's the Mersey to Delta arrival that we're using today. So that's where you get your arrival, and that's where you get your arrival runway. So if we're happy with that, then we shall continue. In fact, I'm just going to bring that back in because we're now going to use our takeoff performance calculator, which is a website that I've just inadvertently closed down, I think. Let me open that back up again. There we go. So take a note down of that website. Great little website, free to use, of course. And we can just use our A31920 takeoff performance calculator. Obviously make sure this is set to the A320. It's not the A320neo, but for the simulator it's certainly close enough. So we're going to type in here then, we are departing from Echo Golf Alpha Alpha, which is Belfast. Hit the METAR button. We shall get the latest weather. So 360 at 7. So if I actually have a look here at the charts for Belfast, there is another runway. We could use runway 35, which may be better for the winds. It's a very short runway, so we'd have to use flaps 3 for that takeoff. Flaps 3 toga. I'm going to continue for now, just for the tutorial anyway, and continue to use runway 07, but we need to be aware of that we may have a little crosswind on departure of 7 knots. So the wind is 360 at 7, so it's coming from the north, 360, and it will be blowing us from the left over towards the right as we depart. So we need to be aware of that. Uncabin Badger, when you set up your flight plans, how do I know which arrival transition to use for any given runway? Right, okay, so the arrival, I think I've just gone over that. That is shown on the operational flight plan. So that is the arrival, that is the runway. In terms of which transition you're using, so transitions aren't always used, usually at bigger airports, but certainly the initial approach fix is used, and strangely enough, I'm not sure Manchester here on this particular approach has the initial approach fix. Basically you just get vectored in by air traffic control, but the last approach fix on this approach is the Mersey waypoint just there. So if it was an option in the flight plan, Mersey will be the last waypoint. If I come to the ILS, you can see here there are no waypoints to speak of, just distances from the Mike Charlie Tango VOR, which is probably why the simulator just wants us to go straight to the Mike Charlie Tango VOR, fly out, do a little horseshoe loop, and then come back in. So let me just get rid of that, and let's have a look at continuing to do our performance calculations for takeoff. So we've got the weather. So our takeoff weight then, let's have a look. Takeoff weight 59.6, so 59616. We can actually then pop that in exactly, 59616. 59616. Of course, in the real world, you'd have to do more calculations because the chances are that might not be exact. You may be burning more fuel on the ground, you may have passengers offloading, etc., etc. But certainly for a simulator, that's good enough. Okay, so we've already said we're going to depart from runway 07. Now the next question is, are we using the full runway or are we using an intersection of the runway? And just to show you what I mean, if I come back here, you can see that the taxiway, we're parked over here, and we're going to taxi all the way down here, down taxiway Charlie, cross this runway, and then we're going on Delta to hold here at Delta 1. If we want to use the full length of the runway, we'd have to obviously enter the active runway, turn right, backtrack, and then turn around to use the full length of the runway. Well, we don't need to do that, it's a long enough runway. We should be able to take off here right from this intersection of Delta 1. In that case, what I'm going to do now is tell it that's where we're going to depart from. So we're going to take off from taxiway Delta. So we've got our weight, it's got the weather, we've told it which runway we're using, whereabouts we're taking off from, taxiway Delta. I'm now going to hit calculate and see what it says. There we go, there's the flex temp. So our flex temp for our takeoff today is 68 degrees, so we're going to pop that in a moment. And that's how we do our takeoff calculations. So to pop those in, we go to the performance page and let's fill these out. So the transition altitude here is, we need to find those on the charts, or ATIS would tell us. Standard instrument departure charts usually have that information on there. So there we go, the transition altitude is 6,000 feet. I'll come to that in a moment, HD. So transition altitude 6,000 feet, which I've now just put in the thrust reduction. That's a pain. I'll go back and edit that in a moment. Flaps 1 for departure. Don't worry about filling out the trimmable horizontal stabilizer. We can leave that. And our flex temp of 68 that we have just calculated. So HD asks, does the takeoff runway available in the performance calculation match the charts? Vital cross check. So in order to find that, is it on here? Yes, it is. So let's have a look. So if we are using runway 07 taxiway Delta, we should have 2,654 meters of runway to use. And if we cross check that, 2,654 meters. So it works. Vital cross check, as HD suggests. So I'm happy with that. The thrust reduction and acceleration altitude are the same for this airport. I'm not going to go into too much detail regarding that this evening. Let's calculate our V speeds now. So V2, click it once, we get 131, click it again, it inserts it. Rotate 127, and V1 126. So there are V speeds for the departure. Alright, so we've said we know what's happening on our departure. We're going to take off, climb on runway heading to 2,000 feet before initiating a turn. And it's easy for me to show you on the VFR map just here. So we will climb out to 2,000 feet before turning to Lisbon. Realistically, we could probably go direct to Pepod by that point. So with all of those now completed, we would run the before start checklist, but we've got a couple of things left to do. Our main door is still open, as we can see down here, and we also want to get rid of that external power, so we can close that down. We can close the main door. Actually, we can't. I've got 17 passengers still waiting to board. Come on, get on board. There we go. They're now on board. Now we can close the door. So external power is disconnected. We can tell him to, well, to go away politely. Off he goes.
Hi Captain, all passengers are on board and doors have been closed.
Thank you.
Alright, so now they've gone. Let's do our cockpit preparation checklist. Check that everything is as it should be. So cockpit preparation is now complete. I'm going to lock the flight deck door as well. Our signs are on, or auto. In fact, we can turn that one all the way on. Is that one all the way on? Yes, it just didn't look like it. So those signs are on. The emergency signs are armed. ADIRs we need to check have aligned, and we've got 3 nav green. In order to do that, we come to the data page and check the IRS monitor. 3 nav green. That means the computer gyroscopes are all happy and working. Fuel quantity is loaded. We're just burning fuel because of the APU running at the moment, so about 3 tons. We can check its balance by checking the fuel page. turn that off once we've done. John, where can we find the QNH? So you can either request the weather through the McDo now, or, much easier, you can go to the dashboard. And as long as you've linked it with SimBrief, we've got the QNH there, 1038. Which has now changed. 1038. So now that's changed. Final check. We need to do that. We need to do that. Change the QNH on there. And the other thing we need to do is we need to come back to our performance calculations. Because if we get that latest METAR again, has it changed? There it is. 1038. Nothing else has changed. Everything else is the same. Hit calculate and just see if we're still showing... oh, right, okay, hang on. Runway 07, there's our takeoff weight. 1038. Oh, takeoff runway available appears to be blank. Why is that? Let me just reset that. 07, taxiway delta. There we go, 2654. Calculate. Flex temp is still 68. But as the QNH changed, we needed to check that wasn't going to affect anything. Okay, so that's all sorted. Flight management guidance computer is all programmed. We've done that. Altimeter set and double checked, as you've just seen. So we've done the departure briefing. We know what we're going to do. Take off. Hold the runway altitude, runway heading until 2,000 feet. Then we'll start banking right. So our pushback then. Get the pushback clearance. Turn on the rotating beacon light. And call our tug. I'm using the pushback helper as well for that. I'm not using it yet, just on here. I still prefer the pushback helper, but you can use the ground feature. This now works. Calling the tug driver just there. Michael, I use a very recommended checklist. If you get yourself into our Discord server, if someone could just bring that up in the chat for me, then there is the pilot's briefing room on there that is full of fantastic manuals, information, checklists as written by our very own HD. So get yourself in our Discord server and everything you need will be in there, as well as a lot of the information I'm providing you now on this stream, and that's a lot of that is where that comes from. So final thing to do before we push back is set the transponder to auto. And now let's run the before start checklist below the line. So windows and doors are closed and armed. In fact, they're closed. Are they armed? I'm not sure I've asked the cabin crew to do that yet.
Cabin crew, we're about ready to push back, so if you can use all the doors out, cross check, thank you.
There we go. So they're closing the doors, making sure they're armed. Rotating beacon light is on. Parking brake is on. We're going to release that in a moment as we start our pushback. And the parking brake is obviously shown there on the eCam to make sure that that's working properly. So now it's time to start pushing back. The tug driver is connected. One thing I actually didn't mention. One thing I didn't mention is our stop climb altitude for this departure. It does show that really we just need to be above flight level, above 4,000 feet by Lisbon. I don't think, other than that, it says anything else. We'd normally be given it here by air traffic control, but there isn't any air traffic control online. So we'll leave. We'll set a stop climb altitude of 6,000 feet for now. All right, let's start pushing back. So parking brake can come off. Back we go. And now we can look to start the engine. So engine mode selector to ignition. And check that APU bleed is on, which it is. Starting engine 1.
attention to the monitors as we review the emergency procedures. There are 6 emergency exits on this A320neo. Please take a minute to locate the one closest to you and note that it may be behind you. Count the number of rows to the exit. Should the cabin experience pressure loss, stay calm and listen for instructions from the cabin crew. Oxygen masks will drop down from above your seat. Place the mask over your mouth and nose like this, and pull the strap to tighten it. If you are traveling with children, make sure you put your own mask on first before helping others. In the unlikely event of an emergency landing and evacuation, leave your carry-on luggage and items behind. Life rafts are located below your seats and emergency lighting in the floors will lead you to the closest exit. We ask that you make sure that all carry-on luggage is stowed away safely during the flight. While we wait for takeoff, please take a moment to review the safety procedures on the card in the pocket in front of you. Electronic device must now be switched off or turned to airplane mode until we instruct you that it is again safe to use them. Our cabin service will commence once we are in flight. If you are a frequent flyer with us, you can now join the channel as a member and obtain extra perks to make your journey with us more enjoyable. Thank you for your attention and we hope you enjoy the flight.
That pushback driver is going to chop my wing off. Okay, so now the pushback is complete. Let's set the parking brakes and we'll also start engine 2. Engine 1 is stabilized. Parking brakes on, starting engine 2. I believe for the Neo it's an engine number 1 started first in the Neo. The older aircraft was engine 2, something to do with the hydraulics, I think. Okay, so just reading the chat. I think my mic was muted for a second there. Yeah, engine 2 started first in the older aircraft. Engine 1 in the Neo, something to do with the hydraulics. So I just wait for engine 2 to stabilize. Captain B, well done on the landing. So if you're on the Discord channel, Captain B, then it is in the pilot briefing room for information regarding all the documentation that we have. So engine 2 is now available. So engine mode select can come back to norm. APU bleed can come off. And actually looking at the skies that we've got, I'm going to pop anti-ice on, which means I need to just check one more thing. So on these calculations we did, you can see here that the packs we calculated to be off. I also had anti-ice off. I'm now going to go anti-ice all and just recalculate that, see if we're still using the flex temp of 68. See, there we go. So flex temp of 65. So there's a little change just there, which I can now go and pop in. So change that to 65. There we go. APU coming off. Ground spoilers now armed. Flaps 1. The next thing we're going to do then is have a look at the pitch trim, and a lot of people ask me about this, and it's definitely something that's easier to show than it is to explain. So if we come to the fuel page here, you can see the centre of gravity of the aircraft now is 32.5. All we need to do then is come down to the trim wheel, which was control 6 as well, just to get this view, and then the arrows, just to have a look. So 32.5, we can see the little white arrow or triangle there that we're trying to line it up to. So look at these centre of gravities. There's 25, there's 30, there's 35. So 32.5 is almost bang between 30 and 35, isn't it? So as long as you get that roughly between the two, then that's now set up in the correct place. Nobi, can I actually explain flex temp a little more? Yes, after doing a lot of reading about it, but not tonight. Basically, you're tricking the engines, so the engines are going to work with what it believes is the power it needs to get us off the ground. We basically lie to the engines and tell them that the temperature outside the aircraft is a lot hotter than it actually is. Clearly it's not 65 degrees here in Belfast, but it means that the aircraft don't that the engines don't work to their full capacity because they don't need to, and it saves wear and tear on the engines. It's also a lot quieter, saves a little bit of fuel too. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is run the after start checklist. So anti-ice is on, ecam status is checked, nothing showing on there. Pitch trim we've just set 32.5 and check that the rudder is showing as 0. We can now send our tug driver away, off he goes. We don't want to run him over, so we'll just give him a second to get out of the way. Whilst he's doing that, I'm going to check that my flight controls are working. So down on the lower ECAM, so we're going to move our side sticks full left, full right, neutral, full up, full down, neutral, and then the rudder, full right, full left, neutral. So they're working, happy about that. We're now ready to taxi. The pushback tug is clear. He's going for a sandwich. We now want to turn on our taxi lights. We can now remove the parking brakes, and let's just double check our taxi route. So we are now here. We're going to taxi out down there, cross the runway, and line up. Hold short at Delta 1. So just from an outside view, it's down here, cross there, cross that runway, and hold short here. Let's go. So how many guys are you actually flying this flight live now along with me? And how many are sat enjoying a beer and a packet of crisps? No, I didn't know you could actually drag the tug around in the simulator. That sounds like fun. I love these upgraded little airports that people have done. Particularly the freeware ones as well, where we've got taxi signs and parking stand numbers on the taxiway. It's great when flying online with VATSIM and things like that. Is the Discord link not working? Alright, I'll have a look at that in the cruise. Not sure what's happening with that. I'll try and get that sorted for you guys. So that was holding point Charlie 2 we've just passed, as you can see here. So there was Charlie 2. We're now going to pass Charlie 1 in a moment, cross the runway. Noah, you can also open the doors while in flight. Yeah, that probably would cause a bit of a problem. I have seen people do that actually, and on the lower ECAM they get the depressurization warning, which is nice. So this is holding point Delta 2. We'll hold at Delta 1 in a moment. And then we'll run through the rest of the checks that we need to do before we actually get airborne. So here's holding point Delta 1. Alright, so what we need to do now we've stopped. We're going to turn on the weather radar and the predictive wind shear. That should also be at WX plus T, which is basically weather, showing weather and turbulence. We're going to turn the transponder on in a moment. We can leave it there for now, but we're also going to turn on the auto brake. We're going to ding the cabin, tell them it's time they took their seats. We can put the terrain radar on as well if we wished, and we're going to press the TO config button. No, we're not on VATSIM. Not on VATSIM while doing a tutorial flight. Okay, so the cabin's now ready as it is showing. Let's run our before takeoff checklist to the line. So we've checked our flight controls. We're familiar with the departure briefings. Runway heading till 2,000 feet. Then we'll make that right hand turn to fly on course. Initial stop climb is 6,000 feet with no air traffic control online, so it wouldn't matter too much for this if we actually went past that. The ECAM memo is set TO config, no blue, and the electronic flight bag is all stowed. We can also check these numbers as well. So 126 blue, which is V1, 131 magenta, which is V2. Climb and nav is armed and showing blue. We've got 6,000 feet there, which matches 6,000 feet here. And we've got flight directors 1 and 2 turned on, and we're doing a flex temp takeoff. Okay, we're now ready to enter the active runway, but before we can do that we need to just check that the brake temperatures are fine, which they are. Our brake fans are turned off if you happen to have them turned on. Check there's no aircraft on the approach path. Now we're going to turn the lights on, so strobe lights, runway turn off lights, landing lights, and the nose lights to take off. We're going to turn packs 1 and 2 off, and we'll pop those back on shortly after departure. And now the final checklist: cabin secured for takeoff, engine mode select is norm, TCAS to TARA and tilt above. I'll just zoom in there so you can see that. So TCAS all the way over, and then to tilt ABV, tilt above, and turn on the transponder. So now we can enter the active runway. HD, has that ever happened to you? That's when they called a tug driver to come and get you off the runway. So in a minute we'll commence the takeoff roll. Side stick half forward until passing 80 knots, and then we start to release the side stick back to its neutral position. So half forward, back to normal by 100 knots. So we're ready to go. So this is the takeoff. We start the chrono, so we've got a timer. There we go. Side stick forward. Advance the thrust levers to 50% N1 as shown on the upper ECAM display. And then we set our flex temp takeoff thrust. So that now shows man flex, SRS and runway. Auto thrust blue. We're now at 100 knots, side stick to neutral. V1, which means we can now pull back and rotate. And a bit of gusty wind, just for good measure. Pulling the nose up then to 15 degrees. Gear up. Interesting, we appear to be blown over from the right when the wind's coming from the left. So in a minute this will flash climb thrust and we'll pull the thrust levers back. So lower the nose now to 10 degrees, start accelerating away, thrust levers to the climb detent. We can now turn packs 1 and 2 back on. We've passed 2,000 feet, we've also just passed S speed, so flap 0, ground spoilers disarmed, and we can start that turn towards our first waypoint. Thrust climb, power, and climb and nav green. So the aircraft will now target 250 knots below 10,000 feet. And there it is, the engine's rolling back as we've hit 250 knots. So the autopilot isn't on yet, no need to turn the autopilot on quite so soon. Let's get it on track and then we'll turn it on. The simulator prefers it that way as well. Oh, HD, I was about 10 seconds behind you. So if we stop our climb at 6,000 feet, we just lower that nose. You can see the engine's rolling back to hold 250 knots. There's no air traffic control line, so we can go ahead and climb to our cruising flight level, which today is flight level 240. So engage that. 240 blue, and correction, we need to set standard pressure, then flight level 240 blue. The aircraft is still climbing at 1,400 feet per minute, that's absolutely fine. Christian, do you know what? I didn't really notice any problems with the flap drag just then, so it may be. It may be. So we're now going direct to that first waypoint, which is Lisbon. I'm going to tell it that actually, do you know what? We can just clear that, enter destination data. We can go direct to the next one, which was Pepod. So let's pop that in. Temporary, we can confirm direct. So now, if we turn on autopilot 1, we should bank left as it takes us to Pepod. HD, was it because I'd not actually got autopilot engaged at that point?
Ladies and gentlemen, you may now use your electronic devices. Rechargeable battery packs are available for your smartphones and tablets. Please use Super Chats or Super Sticker to get your cabin cruise attention.
So as we pass 10,000 feet, in a moment we'll turn the lights off.
And joining the channel. Thank you.
Leave the strobe lights on. And the aircraft should now look to just follow the flight plan, hopefully. Oh, okay, fair enough, HD. Maybe that's something else the fly-by-wire guys will fix at some point. So the fly-by-wire guys as well are also wanting to very soon release the custom autopilot build, but before they do that they want to fix fuel burn and things like that. So I believe that's actually next on the agenda. Looking forward to that. Oh, that's strange, particularly as I had just briefed that we needed anti-ice on. That's my bad. We actually planned for that. We even did a performance calculation, didn't we? Slapping across the knuckles for me, or around the back of the head. We said we'd need anti-ice on for this, and the aircraft just confirmed that. So we're going to be at our cruise altitude very soon. Buster, will we be doing an ILS landing? Yes, we shall. Yes. So the outer tank fuel is probably easy to show a little bit on here, isn't it? So if I bring up the fuel page, so we've got 5 tanks in the A320. The 2 outer tanks, which are at the ends of the wings. So obviously the left outer tank, the right outer tank. You've then got the 2 inner tanks. And then when they drop below 750 kilograms of fuel, fuel is pumped from the outer tanks to the inner tanks, and that's what that little message on there means. So very, very short flight. We can start looking at our approach very soon. Realistically, we would we did brief the approach a little bit whilst we were on the ground, which we would do because we're just not in the air long enough to plan it nicely. I'm glad you missed it as well, HD. So we're past 10,000 feet as well. The other thing we can do is we can turn on airports on the navigation display. Also check the progress page. Not sure why the cruise appears to be blank. It's keyed in there, flight level 250. Bit strange. I've set 240 there as well, so let's correct that. Flight level 250 and confirm 250 blue just there. It definitely wasn't wet on the ground in Belfast. Werner Miller, will what video be on YouTube? We're on YouTube, aren't we? Okay, so you may have seen a notification pop up just down here, enter destination data. Well, that is because we're close enough to the airport now that the aircraft's getting ready to land. So it needs some information to facilitate that. So if we go to our McDo menu, go to the ATSU menu, go to the AOC menu, and get a weather report for Manchester. So weather request. Manchester's already keyed in there. Let's send that off. And as you can see, we're only 120 miles away from Manchester. If you want to know exactly how far we are away from Manchester, I can go to the RadNav page, type in the Mike Charlie Tango VOR, Mike Charlie Tango, which is based at Manchester Airport. Oh, Werner Miller, yeah, this will be available after the stream is finished, so you can come back and replay it anytime you wish and obviously fly alongside it. So Mike Charlie Tango VOR, we are 117 miles away. And we can also turn that on just here, and you'll see that now displays 115 miles away. So we're now approaching our cruise altitude, flight level 250, speed, alt, star and nav. Luca Pavan, is TCAS working on this aircraft? I believe it does, but not if you're on VATSIM. Okay, so we've got a company message. That company message is the weather report we've just requested. So go to our AOC menu, messages received. I'm going to collect that and I'm going to print it off. And that's not just a gimmick. I'll show you why that's quite useful in a moment. So let's plan our arrival just while that's printing off, shall we? So we're doing the Mersey 2 Charlie arrival, sorry, Mersey 2 Delta arrival, which begins here at gig 2, and then we come in here at Mersey. Now the maximum hold, we're not going to do a hold, but maximum flight level there is flight level 140. Then from Mersey we're going to vector ourselves in, so we're basically going to fly along here, round in a big arc, and come line up with the ILS at Manchester. Now the Manchester platform altitude is 3,500 feet. So when we are at Mersey, then I'm quite happy to be at an altitude of around, well, flight level 140 is absolutely fine. We can leave Mersey at flight level 140, get down and come and intercept the ILS. Maximum speed, however, of 230 knots. Yeah, anti-ice is staying on for the duration, as it's not quite SAT, saturated air temperature. If it's minus 40 or below, minus 41, minus 42, then anti-ice can come off. HD, I'm a big fan of situational awareness, and having grown up in Cessnas, I like my VORs. Okay, so let's just plan this then, and we're going to plan this using the top of descent calculator on here. So if I go to the performance and our top of descent calculator, so if I sync that, there we go, altitude 2,500 feet or flight level 250. If I want to be at, let me just bring this out so I can type into it without affecting the aircraft. So if I want to be at flight level 140, and I'm going to start, I want a nice gentle descent of 1,500 feet per minute. I need to start that descent 54 miles away from that Mersey waypoint. Now the way to work that out at the moment is we have to use the range rings on here. So the Mersey waypoint is it even actually showing? It might not be showing, you know, because the so it should come after Wallasey. Do we have it in? No, we don't. Can I pop that in manually? So after Wallasey, we might be able to type this in. MIRSI. Enter that there. Does it come in? No, it doesn't. So that's a bit of a pain. And to be fair, I don't mind showing that or that happening on a tutorial video, because I know a lot of people get frustrated when the sim doesn't do as we expect it to. So we're going to vector ourselves in. Basically, we could also use the charts. So from Wallasey, if we fly a track heading of 061, that's going to take us close enough to where the Mersey waypoint would be. So we'll do it the old-fashioned way.
Ladies and gentlemen from the cockpit, once again, just to let you know, we've reached our cruise level for today's flight. We're not anticipating any delay, so we should have you and your destination on time as planned. As the cabin crew make their way around the aircraft, please make sure the aisles are clear of any items. Allow your mate to sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the flight. Thank you.
I think we've just got time for the cabin crew to deli out a drink or two.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to serve a selection of alcoholic drinks. Please make sure your tray table is in the down position and clear any items from the aisle. If you would like to upgrade to premium brands, super stickers and super chats are available. If you are a frequent flyer with us, you can now join the channel as a member and get extra perks to make your journey with us more enjoyable. Thank you.
Carson, the giveaway for the CRJ shall be later this week. make sure you've hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell for that. So Captain B, you bring up a good point. Let's have a look. If I had to do a go-around, we find the information just here. If I had to do a go-around, we would do exactly as we were told to do at the top. So missed approach, we climb to 3,500 feet, straight ahead until we pass 750 feet, or a distance of 0 from the localizer, or 0.3 miles from the Mike Charlie Tango. Another reason to have it in. And then we would let air traffic control tell us what they want us to do. So eventually we'd just have to vector ourselves in. So we're currently 68 miles away from Manchester. I'm actually going to turn off that airport display just so we can see exactly what's happening there. So from Wallasey, that is where I'm going to fly, heading of 061 degrees. Good evening, Willie. Good to see you. Captain B, no problem. Also note, HD, we're at alt. We're not at alt cruise. We're not high enough for alt cruise. Is that correct? There's another general general question for him. So this is the nice bit of the flight. Let's have a look at that weather printout now, shall we? So let's rip that off, collect it, and this is where it becomes really useful. So we want to come to our performance page, onto the approach part, the approach phase, and we click next phase, and here's where we're going to pop this information in. So the QNH at Manchester is 1033. The temperature is 8 degrees. HD, yeah, I'll go back and do that in a sec. And the wind is 320 at 6. 320 at 6. Transition altitude at Manchester is normally found on here. If not, it will be on here. 5,000 feet. The minimum descent altitude, as we're not doing an auto land, we don't need to, the weather's good enough. Minimum descent altitude for a Cat C aircraft is 449 feet. And we pop that in the MDA. Decision height is only used if you're doing a full ILS auto land approach. So how far away are we? Do we need to start that descent? 50 miles away. So we're going to start that descent to flight level 140. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to pull, which pops us into open descent. Sadly, doesn't work too well yet in the sim. So I'm then going to engage vertical speed as well, and we're going to descend at 1700 feet per minute. I'm also going to pull the speed bug, as I want to hold well, that was interesting. Mind you, we're not high enough for Mac, are we? In that case, let's leave manage mode engaged, shall we? So thrust idle, vertical speed 1700 feet per minute, and we've got flight level 140 programmed in. Let me have a look. Yeah, because the cruise, I don't know why that was blank. That would normally show our cruise altitude, which was, not that it matters now, but it was 250. Can I actually put in? Don't know if I can enter that. No, I can't enter that. Never mind, doesn't matter. So normally you'd be descending with max speed, but we're not high enough for max speed to be relevant. So we're just holding 250 knots at the moment, and that's fine. Coming up on Wallasey in about 10 miles. Good evening, Nick. Hope you're well. Have you guys just come over from the CRJ? How is it? So we've got a wind as well pushing us from the left. Be aware of that. Look at all those channel members. Nothing else to do on a Tuesday evening. Which is fine by me. Glad you're all here. Looking forward to landing in Manchester. I've not flown in the UK for a long time. Keeping it real. We don't want the don't want those COVID bugs spreading about, do we? Okay, so we've got the do you know what was very strange then? I saw Mersey flip up just then. And where is that aircraft taking us to now? Okay, so if a bug like this happens, I'm just going to let this run. Something strange just happened now. It's taking us right to the threshold of the runway. I do not want to go to the threshold of the runway because I can't land on it like that. So, if we pull the heading bug, we're now going to fly parallel to the runway and come in and back round because we can't come straight in. Lethal, welcome to the First Officers Club, my friend. Great to have you on board. Look forward to seeing you in many more streams to come. So, heading 061. And if anyone's wondering where that 061 came from, I've just got that from the charts. But essentially, it's almost the opposite direction to the runway that we're landing on in Manchester. So I'm going to start slowing the aircraft down as well now. As by Mersey actually had a maximum speed of, was it 230 knots? Again, we can get that from the charts. Wrong chart. Yeah, so at Mersey, which for some reason is not there, but strangely enough, if you rewind the stream, as soon as we passed over Wallasey, Mersey appeared on the top right of the navigation display up there, which was a little naughty. How strange that is. That was the waypoint that I was looking for. So now if I just bring up the VFR map, you can see Manchester Airport here. You can see the route that we're going to be taking and flying in. However, the simulator actually messes it up because it takes you to the Mike Charlie Tango VOR. That's what it wants me to do, and then fly all the way to out here, back to this USR point, which is a load of nonsense, and then back in. That's why we're vectoring ourselves in, which basically means we're just flying our own way in. So now we're flying almost parallel with the runway, and then we're going to come in and come around back on this track to bring ourselves in. And as HD's pointed out, we just need to be aware of that track because the wind is pushing us over from the left. So we've actually set a heading of 061, but we're actually flying a track of about 072 degrees, and that's because the wind is pushing us over there. This is sometimes where track FBA comes in quite handy. So if you want to make sure you are flying a track heading of 061, press the track FBA button, and you can see, there we go, it's changed to 072. Let's turn that to 061. So speed, alt star and track. Willie, no, you can't delete the deft waypoints, that's why we just have to ignore them. Okay, so we're now going to continue now down to 3,000 feet. So, just before I confirm that, flight level, altitude 3,000 feet, and our QNH is 1033. We'll set local pressure. And we'll descend. Now, not using feet per minute because we're in that track mode, so we're descending at a glide path angle of 3.5 degrees. And as we're getting closer to the airport now, we can start to really slow that aircraft down. And to do that, we can hit the performance page, activate the approach phase, confirm the approach phase once it turns on by pressing it again, and enter manage mode for the speed, and the speed should now start to roll back to this green dot speed here. To slow us down a little bit as well, we can get some speed brakes out. And Manchester has got the Pennine Hills to the east and northeast of it, so we'll leave the terrain radar turned on.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, you may have noticed we've begun our descent into our destination. We're not expecting any further delays or traffic in front of us for the next few minutes, so if you do assist the cabin leave by tidying your trays, handle the back, and putting any lids in the bags provided. For safety reasons, please turn off all electronic devices and switch them to airplane mode until we have landed. Please also note that the exits will...
I also want to start descending a little bit faster than what we are doing, so I'm just going to pull and go back to heading mode and just descend 2,500 feet per minute now. Let's get down, and if we just have a look, the platform altitude, which is the altitude we want to intercept the ILS at if we're intercepting it at 10 miles, is 3,500 feet. So the airport is back behind us over here somewhere. We're about to pass 10,000 feet, so we can turn the lights on. Seatbelt signs never came off. So approach checklist, our minimums are set, minimum 449. Engine mode select is norm and the electronic flight bag is stowed. And let's just confirm it's actually 3,500 feet that we want. 3,500 feet, and let's start rolling that heading bug around now to start to prepare and bring us in. So I also want to check that we have got the ILS frequency populated in the RadNav page. 109.5. That is correct. If you have charts, you can also check that. 109.5. There it is, and the identifier India November November, which is there. Now that's there, we can turn on the landing system. And start to bring the aircraft again back around. As we've got no air traffic control as well, we also want to be sure that we're not going lower than we're allowed to. So the minimum safe altitude is 3,500 feet. We don't want to be descending any lower than that altitude. Buster, would we be allowed to vector ourselves in VATSIM? Yes, absolutely. And of course, if you've got air traffic control online, then you can request vectors from air traffic control, and that would be absolutely fine. So you can just see the glide slope now is coming beneath us, going above us rather, which is what we want as we descend beneath it. And we can start to slow down that descent rate. Just going to turn the brightness down of the terrain radar. Oops. Scroll wheel having a moment. HD, I think I just beat you to that. Okay, so we're now going to turn over to about heading 160, just to line up with the runway center line, and we can start to set the ILS approach. As we've reduced that speed of descent, then the speed is rolling back quite nicely. So we're now going to go flaps 1, speed check flaps 1, and you can confirm those with the VFE speeds just here. So flaps 1, and I'm going to go flaps 1, make sure that holds. Flaps 1, radar altimeter is alive, as we can hear that calling out, because we've got the Pennines beneath us. And it's great when you're driving over the Woodhead Pass, which is one of the roads that weaves in between these hills. You see the aircraft coming and flying over what looks to be quite low down. So we're now just turning this round to intercept this at a nice angle. So localizer is coming across, we turn on the localizer there, confirm lock green, cat 3 single. You can just see that starting to align as the aircraft aligns up with this approach. And we're 14 miles from the airport. Glide slope is now active, so we can turn on the approach mode. And glide slope blue. What were the winds? Winds were 310 at 3. So I expect those winds to drop as we do. I'm going to turn the terrain radar off now, as we shouldn't need that any longer. We should capture the glide slope in a moment. Glide slope captured. Missed approach altitude 3,500 feet is already set, as it happened to be the same as the platform altitude. That's twice in a week, HD, we've seen the wind do that. So we're now descending on the ILS. We've captured the glide slope, we've captured the localizer. Is that a random bit of cloud of pollution over Manchester? How random. So, radio altimeter is now back alive at 2,500 feet. So let's go flaps 2, speed check, flaps 2. So the aircraft will now start to slow down to F speed.
Cabin crew, please prepare the cabin for landing.
And just passing 6 miles then, let's get the landing gear down. Auto brake not required, nice long runway at Manchester. Ground spoilers are now armed. We can turn on the nose wheel lights, runway turn off lights, ding the cabin crew up there as well. 5 miles to run. I believe we do have the bump as well here at Manchester. The bump's modelled well. Okay, flaps 3, speed check, flaps 3. Followed now by flaps full. Landing checklist. So cabin is secured for landing. Auto thrust speed. Go around altitude is set. ECAM memo landing no blue. So after landing, guys, if you could do me a favour, hit that like button for me on the stream, that would be great. I'm now going to disconnect the autopilot and I shall see you on the other side. So autopilot 1 disconnected, I have control. The wind is blowing from the right a little bit, pushing us obviously to the left. So we're now just holding the centre line, looking at Pappy's and the glide slope. They don't always agree in the simulator, sadly. "500 feet, our approach is stable, we shall continue." Land is now showing on the FMA. There's that bump, you can see it. Thrust to idle, flare. And the reversers are now on as well. "70 knots, reversers off. And we shall vacate the runway. And the runway visitors centre is straight ahead. That aircraft is actually there as well, although I believe it's not the right aircraft that's modelled.
The local time is 10:23. Unfortunately, the temperature
There's the hangar bang in front of us, which Concorde is in.
32 Fahrenheit, so if you have a jacket or coat, you might want to put it on before exiting the aircraft. Please remain seated until the aircraft arrives at the gate.
Ground spoilers are now disarmed, and the flaps can come back up.
The airport terminal. If you enjoyed your flight, you can now join the channel as a member and receive extra perks to make your future flights with us more enjoyable. Thank you for flying with easyjet.
We also want to start now the APU. Turn off the strobes, turn off the runway, turn off lights, turn off the landing lights, leave the taxi lights on. We can get rid of the de-ice, don't need that anymore. APU now starting. And we'll also turn off the weather radar so we don't fry the ground crew. Transponder to auto and TCAS off as well. And now we taxi to our stand of choice. I'm going to hold that there. We've actually got an instant replay, so I'm going to show you the instant replay as well in a moment. So let me just hold that. But just before we do show the instant replay, if you've got any questions, then now is a great time to ask them. We shall watch a couple of replays and answer any questions that that you may have. If you're on your way out, please do hit that like button for me. That would be really appreciated as well. So let's have a look at letting this instant replay load, shall we? So I'm using flight control replay for the instant replay, and I actually have two versions of this to give away in future streams. So I'll look forward to doing that for you. Make sure that you are subscribed and have turned the notifications on. Let me get rid of self-loading cargo passengers because they're going to scream all the way down as we've just teleported them back to the start of the approach. Also doing this changes the time of day as well. I don't know why, but we could have a nice evening landing if we wished. None of the instruments show the correct information on the replay, but it does mean that we do get to sit and enjoy the view coming in of Manchester. Now this is a view I've seen several times, and I have to say it looks really, really realistic. CD55, why does it say 100 above? So that is 100 feet above your minimum descent altitude. So you know if you can't see the runway at that call out, you've only got 100 feet to go. If you still can't see the runway when you get to minimums, you need to go around. Willie, it's a Star Trek transporter accident. Indeed. Christian, you'd like to enjoy a thunderstorm landing. Do you know, I think we can do that. Bradley, the voices come from an app called self-loading cargo. Mad Pilot, what's the difference between flex and toga? So toga just stands for takeoff and go around thrust, which is basically maximum thrust. Which puts a lot of wear and tear on the engines. It's also very noisy, burns fuel. If you can use a flex temp, it's basically a reduced thrust takeoff. So the aircraft will still get airborne with the amount of runway that it has available, but it won't run at full power. Airlines like that, airports like that, residents around the airport like that. And the airlines like it because it saves them money. Alex, where could you find the fly-by-wire version where Autoland is available? It's not yet available, that's why you're not able to find it just yet. But the fly-by-wire mod is free. Self-loading cargo is not. I think I've parked in that car park. Oh no, that's the car park I parked in.
100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
And there was that little hump at Manchester. I can't believe that we can get things like that model now in the simulator. It really is good. So I'll rewind that and we'll have a look see how it looked from the right hand side. And the right hand side coming in is actually my preferred seating if I get a choice, because it means you get to see the airport pub. Mine and my son's favourite place to sit, especially when the A380 comes and blasts you away at the fence. So Mad Pilot, is flex temperature connected with the outside air temperature, or is it just a term and needs to be worked out? you're basically lying to the engines and telling the engines what the outside
1000.
what the outside air temperature is. And when it's higher, it will not work quite as hard, which sounds a bit backwards, I know, but it works. But basically, it all depends on the current air temperature, the runway length that you've got to play around with. So that's why software calculates it and we don't. So that airport pub will be coming into sight any moment now. God, I can't wait to go back there.
300.
So this side we'll see the airport pub, the perimeter fence and Terminal 3. There's the airport pub
100.
and the perimeter fence
50.
where a lot of TUI 787 Maxes were stored.
20. 10. 5.
Christian, I see what you're saying now. You thought there was a fire in the background, but it's just dirt on the windows. Yeah, I could see how that looked like a tuff of smoke. Okay guys, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you very much. I hope you found that tutorial enjoyable. That flight plan as well will be available to download for, I think it's about 12 hours or so that it's held on the server. So you can download that, keep that, and if you wish then you can play along and fly along with this tutorial again at a later date. Hopefully it's been useful and will help you understand and get a few questions answered a little more about how the simulator and the aircraft work together, and particularly those of you that have landed at Manchester to find the approach just doesn't work as you'd expect it to. That's how we get around it. We have to program that ourselves. I'm going to leave you with a final replay from an outside point of view. So thank you very much guys. I shall be back tomorrow with another live stream, although the time for that is to be confirmed. So make sure the subscribe button is hit, turn on the notification bell. A big thank you to all the subscribers and those that donate and contribute to the channel, and of course a huge thank you to all the channel members as well. Great to see you all. I look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm going to leave you with this final replay. Good night.
100.